I am from the dark magic. If you don't watch until the end, you will regret it. Everyone around you will suffer my wrath. It crept into Abigail's life on a quiet night in her Portland, Oregon duplex. A melody, soft and haunting, drifting through the walls. She was alone, scrolling her phone when it started. A lilting tune, like a lullaby warped by time. No radio, no neighbors playing music, just her and that sound, tugging at something deep in her chest. She froze, listening, and it stopped, only to return the next night, louder, closer, whispering her name. Abigail. She checked the vents, the windows, nothing. Abigail wasn't one for ghost tales. 32, practical, a nurse who dealt with facts, not fancies. But the melody followed her, humming in her car, echoing in the hospital halls. By day 3, she caught herself humming it, the notes slipping out unbidden. That night, she dreamed of him, Thomas, pale and gaunt, playing a violin in a misty forest, his eyes locked on her. "You promised," he said, bow-scraping strings. She woke sweating, the tune stuck in her head. Her throat ached as if she'd been humming all night. A faint mark appeared on her wrist, a thin curved line like a bowstring's burn. She scrubbed it, but it deepened, red and raw. The melody grew insistent, under her bed, in the shower, behind her eyes. She'd hum it without meaning to, and the air thickened with pine and decay. Desperate, she researched at the library. An old newspaper caught her eye. 1893, Thomas Wren, a violinist, vanished in the Oregon woods. He'd loved a woman, Abigail Hart, who died in a fire before their wedding. His last song, a melody he'd written for her, was played at her grave. Locals said he'd wandered off, playing it, swearing she'd hear him again. Abigail's stomach twisted, same name, same tune. That night the melody roared, shaking the walls, rattling her teeth. Thomas stood in her room, violin in hand, bow slicing the air. "You swore to me," he rasped, voice like splintered wood. She screamed, but the notes drowned her, pulling her toward him. Her wrist burned, the mark bleeding now, and she felt it. A memory not hers, of flames and a vow. She tried to fight it, smashed her speakers, plugged her ears, useless. The melody lived in her, humming through her veins. She'd wake to pine needles on her floor, her hands calloused like she'd played all night. Thomas grew clearer, his shadow in her mirror, his breath on her neck. "Sing it," he'd whisper, and she did, voice cracking as the mark spread up her arm. She fled to a friend's house, Eleanor across town. The melody followed, seeping from the radio, the fridge, the wind. Eleanor heard it too, eyes wide. "It's him," Abigail choked, showing the mark. They burned sage, played white noise. Nothing worked. That night, Thomas stood over her, violin screaming. "You're mine," he said, and the floor splintered, roots curling up like veins, days blurred. Abigail stopped eating, stopped speaking. The melody was her pulse, her breath. She'd hum it endlessly, eyes vacant, the mark climbing her neck. Eleanor found her carving it into the table, a jagged bow, dripping red. "He's coming," Abigail whispered, voice not hers. Thomas's shadow loomed in every corner, his tune a noose tightening. One night she ran to the woods, the same forest from her dreams. The melody roared, trees bending to it. Thomas waited, violin blazing, eyes black with hunger. "Sing," he commanded. And she did, voice merging with his strings. Her wrist split open, blood pooling, and she felt him pull her in, into the tune, into the dark. She vanished, the melody fading with her. No one found Abigail. Her duplex stayed silent until Eleanor heard it, faint and lilting, from the walls. She hummed it once, then stopped, a mark blooming on her wrist. The tune had moved on. Don't hum the melody. It finds you, in silence, in dreams, in the air you breathe. Thomas waits for Abigail, and if you sing, you're hers. The city didn't notice Abigail's absence. Eleanor did. She fled Portland, but the melody trailed her, humming in her car her dreams. The mark grew, her voice slipping into the tune. She burned her clothes, smashed her mirrors. Didn't matter. Thomas found her in Seattle, violin weeping. She was gone by morning. The melody spread through Oregon into Washington. A barista heard it in the espresso machine, hummed it, vanished that night. A hiker found it in the wind, his wrist marked by dawn, gone by dusk. It didn't need you to know it, it claimed you. One man, Paul, fought it. He taped his mouth, stayed silent, locked himself in a basement. The melody seeped through the concrete into his skull. He hummed through the tape, eyes wild, mark bleeding. Thomas took him, basement empty but for pine needles. The tune lives, whispered in bars, carried by breezes, carved into skin. A nurse in Salem heard it in a patient's hum, felt the mark. By shift's end, she's gone now, her stethoscope humming alone. Don't hum the melody. It's not just a song, it's him pulling you back to a love you didn't live. Thomas doesn't rest. Abigail doesn't escape. You're next. Listen, feel it in your throat. It's out there, spreading, hunting. A kid in Eugene hummed it at school, vanished from the playground. His backpack buzzed with the tune. It doesn't care who you are, it takes you. Don't sing it. Don't listen. The melody waits, in the quiet, in the woods, in your blood. Thomas sees you, bow ready, strings taut. The tune's alive, slipping through cities, forests, homes. A cop heard it in his cruiser, hummed it on patrol, gone by midnight, radio wailing it. It moves, relentless, eternal. You'll hear it, the lilt, the pull, the whisper of your name. Don't hum it. Check your wrist. Feel the burn. He's close, violin in hand, waiting for you to sing. The melody doesn't fade. It hunts, silent, patient. A woman in Bend heard it in her kettle, hummed it once, gone by noon, steam singing it still. Don't let it in, don't give in. The melody's a trap, a vow, a claim, a grave. Thomas calls you, Abigail binds you. You're theirs once it starts. It's here, spreading, whispering. A janitor heard it in the mop bucket, hummed it. Gone, water rippling with it. It's in your street, your home, your breath. Don't hum the melody. It's not yours, it's his, hers, theirs. Feel it rising, hear it calling. Don't answer. He's behind you now, bow scraping, eyes on you. Run if you can. Silence it if you dare. The melody doesn't stop. It takes you, marks you, pulls you in. Thomas waits and he always wins. The tune's everywhere, humming in the rain, the trees, your skin. A boy heard it in his headphones, sang it, gone. Static, buzzing it still. Don't hum it. Don't let it out. The melody's alive, relentless, hungry. You're trapped, hear it now? He's close, his strings your chains, it's too late when you hum. The mark's on you, the tune's in you. Thomas smiles, bow raised, sing, and you're his. Don't do it. The melody won't die. It spreads cities, woods, souls. A girl heard it in her clock, hummed it, gone, ticks, singing it on. Don't hum the melody. It's a curse, a vow you didn't make, a grave you can't flee. He's here, waiting. Don't sing. It's in you now, the lilt, the pull, the mark. Don't let it win. Thomas owns you once you do, forever, humming in the dark. The tune hunts, silent, ceaseless. A man heard it in his fan, sang it, gone, blades whirring it still. It's your turn. Don't hum. Don't hum the melody. It's his Thomas's binding you to her, to him. You're caught, feel it? He's near, strings screaming. Run if you can, fight if you dare. The melody takes all, marks all, ends all. Thomas waits, don't let him win, it's too late when you sing. The mark bleeds, the tune owns you, he's got you. Bow raised, eyes black. Don't hum it, don't. The melody's eternal, hunting, claiming. The curse is loose and it's coming for you next. Subscribe to Mysteries Beyond Death to fend off the shadows. Hit that button, like the video, ring the bell, and drop a comment with your darkest fear. Don't let the whispers find you alone in the dark.